I suppose the audio is okay. And can everybody hear me? Great. So I'll stand here because the laptop is here and I need to move the slide. So sorry for starting with the wellness problem of you turning this way. So again, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that Mr. Nagaraj and Mr. Kubera actually invited me to this forum. I want to start with December has come around. Very soon New Year is going to start. I'm sure everybody is going to have New Year resolutions and but what you're going to achieve before in the next 15 days. And more importantly, I think everything is going to get postponed to next year. And so we need to figure out what we're going to do in 2016. So with that thought, I hope wellness is definitely an important aspect of what we're going to do in 2016. And so let me talk to you a little bit about myself. So first of all, that's my goal for 2016. Let's see how far I reach. And more importantly, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Sync Remedies, where we are integrating different forms of medicine to provide the right solution to the patients. And I'll tell you a lot more about our solution in a minute, as we go along in the presentation. My background is I'm a Bangalore guy. As I was mentioning earlier, from Rajajinagar, I did my KLE, PUC college, and then Davangere was my allopathic medicine. And St. John's was my general surgery training, after which I went to the US, got my MBA in Boston, and worked at the Massachusetts General Hospital, part of Harvard, for about 7+ years, and then got recruited by Stanford Hospital. I was there for about 4.5 years. Then I became medical director of a startup in San Francisco. And then I decided that a lot of allopathic medicine has been done, and therefore there is a lot of limitations in the field. And I figured that there is a different approach towards health and wellness. And that's the reason we started Sync Remedies last year. So let me little bit of a background of what I did in MGH and Stanford, which is relevant to what I'm talking about today. My main role at both those places was driving clinical outcome. In the sense, if there is a diabetic patient who walks through the door, how do we know what is the right thing to do? How do we know how to manage them more effectively? And more importantly, there was this effort over there, at least more so at Harvard and Stanford, because of them being pioneer institutions, around preventive medicine. How do you keep them outside the hospital so that they don't become worse? Because there are two incentives for that. One is naturally name and fame, and second thing also is of the financial aspect of it too. Because the US is a completely insurance-driven industry. Nobody's paying out of pocket. So if you're not keeping them well, nobody's going to be paying you. So I think there's a direct correlation for incentivized medicine there as well. So apart from that, understanding that not everything in medicine can be done through allopathy was the aha moment that actually I had after being in allopathic medicine for a long time. There are clear-cut limitations where we try to do our best. We do what we think is right, but at the same time, we are not really helping the patient. A clear-cut example is diabetes or asthma or whatever the case may be, where you start with metformin tablets. Very soon, the next thing you know, you're giving injections of insulin. You're trying to do your best thing, but unfortunately, disease is still progressing, and we have not been able to help much. We might be able to slow it down a little bit, but that's pretty much it. So there is a definite need to understand how do we actually provide the best solution to the patient. And I want you to think about that as we go along today, because I think that's where we're going to end up towards the end of the presentation as well. So I asked about today's presentation. Excuse me. I said I'm going to be talking to HR people. Let's do some research about what does HR do. And I talked to a lot of my friends and family in Bangalore who are in HR. And I said, how do you describe HR people? And the fundamental thing they said is they are like a parent with multiple kids. They are there to help a lot of people, nurture them through the process, help them mitigate issues, come up with compliance related issues as well, and deal with those issues. Don't forget the snake in the picture. And so the thing is that there is a real versatility associated with HR. And I think that's one of the reasons why HR plays a critical component of health and wellness for employees. Because everything else falls into place in our mind if health and wellness is taken care of. Because healthy mind and healthy body will result in a good, effective employee. I think I'm sure that you all believe in that as well. So here are the different aspects of HR. They will be focusing on employee wellness. That's our fundamental focus. Talking about preventive medicine, why that is important, how do we drive wellness, and then how do we think about the right solution to keep them healthy. So let's think about the first scenario. A patient, an employee at workplace who is typically not well. There are employees who typically take time off from work because of health related reasons. They're in and out, sporadic, but has some significant impact on the effectiveness of the organization as well as their own work. Absenteeism and decreased productivity seems to be the foremost important aspect for employee wellness as well. Corporations are dealt with having an issue with this for a long time. And it's interesting, I was doing some research, so I'm sure you know the statistics better than I do, but some things that I found out was that 10 to 15% of payroll costs are associated with absenteeism. Smoking and alcoholism are important reasons for this. Lifestyle issues and lifestyle changes and lifestyle modifications are critical component for improving the wellness. But those are the fundamental reasons why patients are not well. It could be a simple cold, as I was talking to somebody earlier, and they said, I rather like to go to the doctor. There are employees who will try to self-medicate as much as possible and then go to work as much as possible because they are okay. But the problem with doing that is not only that you'll end up going to work because you're not fully there. Secondly, if you do have an infection, you're spreading to 7 other people. And now 7 other people are going to be absent from work, not just you, right? So there is that self-medication group. There's secondly, the second group saying, as soon as they don't feel well, first thing they want to do is run to the doctor. That means they're taking half day off from work just for a simple cold, trying to figure out how to actually go and get self-medicated or get medications from the doctor. No matter what the reasons are, there's a lot of instances where it doesn't have to be a major illness to be absent from work. It is not as though you broke a leg in an emergency situation. It is not as though you are having major problems that you have to get hospitalized. Because typically, if you are unable to solve the problems outside the hospital, then we might be able to be thinking about preventive medicine in the more effective way so that you don't fall sick as often. How do you keep yourself well? How do you come up with the remedies which is the right thing for you to do? So these are some issues that we have to deal with from a corporate side. People deal with it on a regular basis as well. So the second scenario is I already covered this side, sorry, is stress. Multiple people doing, a single person doing multiple different jobs, juggling different balls in the air at work, trying to figure out how best to deal with all the issues at hand. Stress related to performance, stress related to peer pressures, etc. So there are multiple different things that actually happen in the corporate world related to stress. So let's think about stress. 45% of Indian workers are stressed, according to a survey of 10,000 employees who were surveyed by AON. 42% of private sector employees have lifestyle issues. Significant. 72% of corporate employees have heart disease. 72%. That's significant. Now, why did they get all these issues? They got all these issues predominantly because of lifestyle issues. Their lifestyle dictates who they are, what actually happens to them. Stress is a big component of that, as I'm sure everybody knows already. Trying to figure out how do we actually deal with stress both from an environmental standpoint as well as social standpoint. So the thing is that what we have seen is corporations try to deal with stress with work-life balance, as they call it, and there are a lot of articles related to how do you deal with work-life balance. Much of the literature unfortunately show that because of the productivity challenges and the deadlines that are set for corporate world, work-life balance actually does not exist. We tried a lot in the US trying to deal with work-life balance. In the hospital, we are working with sick people. We couldn't keep our employees healthy. Stanford had 15,000 employees and absenteeism was at 10%. 10% in a hospital. So you can imagine what happens in non-hospital situations, right? And at Harvard, it was like 7% or so, absenteeism from work. What do people do? They typically give lots of different incentives around sick leaves, paid sick leaves, and other incentives to come back to work, raffles, free food, lots of good stuff. So try and get paid employees to be at work and not really go back home. But nevertheless, they have to just give a bed, I guess, next. So today, so the road to wellness is a critical component to ensuring that employees at any corporations are healthy in order to evaluate and be more effective at work. So from that standpoint, let's think about how do you get a charged employee who's healthy, who's there to provide you with the right options. Corporations provide a lot of different options to their employees. And as I was talking to people earlier, there's a range between I just give the bare minimum of inpatient insurance to a large variety of things that actually happen for employees, like the conversation we had earlier where they're giving on-site doctors, we're giving a lot more incentives for patients to be healthy. But unfortunately, that is not enough. What are the aspects of wellness? Anybody? When you think about wellness in its entirety, how many aspects of wellness are there? Thoughts?
The two major ones are mind and body.
Mind and body, two.
Attitude.
Sorry?
Attitude to being good.
Right, attitude.
Mind, body, spirit, aesthetics, emotion, absolute aspect, the whole range.
That's right.
In WTO definition.
Absolutely. So thank you. So he took my answer away from me. That's perfect. So aspects of wellness doesn't end with health only. Health is an extremely important concept because if you don't have good health, you don't have anything else in play. Once you fix health, you can fix everything else one by one. So there's spiritual, there's emotional, there's social, there's cultural. There's a lot of those aspects to it. But at the same time, corporate wellness is a very important coined term. Corporate wellness is not about whether the employees are just well. Corporate wellness is about the wellness of the company in its entirety. And that is predominantly employees. There's nothing else really going on. Customers and employees. There are two aspects of a corporate wellness. So culture related to improving a patient's employees' health and wellness is a critical component of understanding how to drive efficiency and productivity. Like as they say, healthy employees is a healthy company. Because otherwise you don't have a good healthy company because half the time you're trying to figure this one out. It's interesting statistics that in India, for a project, if you need 200 people, they actually staff it with double that just because of employee productivity. There is a fundamental flaw in this game. Because of absenteeism and productivity issues, the manpower need is almost double according to a survey. And that's because they are factoring in all these issues. So imagine the bottom line impact it has for a company if you're staffing double the number you actually need. It's interesting that actually one of the interventions we landed up doing for corporate wellness at Stanford itself was around let's figure out a way we can understand the risk profile of individuals. And I think that's one of the reasons many of you do HRAs at your organizations as well, trying to figure out the health risk assessment. But the interesting is it's important to figure out what corporations do with the HRA information that you actually get. You get a report saying that your employee health score is this, or you get a points rating as well saying how healthy is your company. So what actually happens? So I'd love to hear, how many of you here use HRA in your companies? Does anybody does HRA in the company? Health risk assessments, surveys for your employees? That means you really don't know how well the wellness factor as well as the health and wellness of the individuals in your company. So that means you really don't know. So you're flying blind. So you can imagine that story now. Has anybody has a sense as to what is your percentage of absenteeism in your company? Thoughts?
10 to 15%.
10 to 15% absenteeism. That's huge, right? Anybody else?
7%.
Well, you got half of theirs. That's amazing. So the thing is that even then, how do you factor in productivity as well as efficiency based on the 7%? So if you know an organization has 7% or 10% absenteeism or productivity issues that are being impacted, how do you factor that in? Any thoughts? No. The thing is just a number on a board. It's a dashboard that management gets saying 7% absenteeism. They have no idea how that translates into productivity. So we landed up doing this, actually an exercise where we tried to evaluate the different factors as to why the patient gets absent. Health and wellness is definitely one among them. Peer pressure is a huge deal. Stress at work. My manager doesn't like me and I don't like the manager type of deal, which I'm sure all of you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And there are lots of these issues that go on. So that means the culture of the company is as critical for the wellness of the employee as actually the health and wellness of the employee as well.
Wellness concept itself has come very recently.
Right, but think about it this way. The wellness coined, I mean the word wellness and the concept of wellness has been coined recently, I agree with you. But if you think about companies that lasted ages, they have thought about culture first. They have driven good, strong culture that harnesses good employees and provides a support system for the employees to be well. It used to be different, saying that, okay, you can be at home, we'll do this, or whatever the case may be at that point in time 50 years ago. But things have dramatically changed now, right? The stress levels are different and everything else. So, unfortunately, what has happened here is the culture of nurturing employees, of understanding what the risk profiles are, understanding how do we be preventive in assessing the risk profiles of individuals and coming up with the right interventions does not exist. So at Stanford, we landed up doing a survey, a risk assessment, health risk assessment survey for all our employees. Believe it or not, 35 to 40%, if I remember correctly, had diabetes in the hospital, in the employees. 40% of hospital employees have diabetes. Now, did the hospital know that? No. We are treating million other hospital diabetic patients, let alone our own employees, right? So the thing is, the first thing we landed up doing is, okay, let's figure out the interventions to prevent diabetes for borderline diabetic patients, or treat these patients effectively and see. Let's figure out the results. Do you know what percentage of healthcare dollars was spent by hospital employees in our own hospital? If you spend 100 rupees, if we have landed up spending, our employees themselves, which was like 10,000, 15,000 maybe, 12,000 maybe employees, took on 25% of the overall revenue. 12,000 employees. How many patients did we see a year? We landed up seeing about 100,000, 1 lakh patients a year or more. So 12,000 employees, the 80-20 rule, clear cut. Blind, we were flying blind for 30 years without understanding simple profiling, of understanding what everybody is doing. So same thing here, in your case, if you go back and actually do a health risk assessment for your employees, you'll get a dashboard. How many patients have diabetes, how many patients are smokers, how many patients are asthma patients, how many patients are having chronic back pains, etc. Many of you are manufacturing, so I'm sure back pain, all those issues are big deals for you guys. And work-related injuries, that's again going back to culture as well. Understanding how to drive wellness from assessing the profiling of the patient, of the employees, is a critical component. So things what you are doing to improve wellness today. We were talking, I was asking all of you, many of you have met, as to what you guys do at your workplace. I think this list covers your company pretty much. I think you're providing almost everything. And some companies I talk to, I don't think do any of this, right? So these are common industry standards in India today as to what are the different things that you're doing. I'm sure people come once a year, twice a year with a diagnostic checkup. You get a report. There's an on-site doctor who sits around and does your consultation for a couple of days. I was talking to you about health risk assessment, HRA service. Here it looks like nobody really is doing that. Diagnostic testing, again, come back once a year and do this executive health checkup. I'm sure all of you get that done every year. And then there's vision, dental, dependent coverage, if some companies cover that. Some of them offer medication delivery, or TPAs might do that actually, for all you know, right? And employee assisted programs for counseling, and talks on improving health, as you were mentioning that you get some people to come over. Anything else I'm missing from the list? Does anybody provide anything else in addition to this list to their employees? Yoga sessions. Great. Okay. Yoga practices, same. Right. Okay. Anything else?
Walking competition, a type, step
Marathon, step-on, right. That's once a year type of deal? Right.
No, we are doing.
We create awareness in our intranet portal about the diabetes, all these things.
Educational information. Good.
See, groups are, we got groups, step-along, they got to meet, they measure every day and send the count to the HR there.
One more dashboard for you to look at. Okay, good for you. Okay, so let me pause here for a second. How many of you, raise of hands, how many of you think that this will improve health and wellness of the employee? Actually, you should answer that question. You do all of it. So let's start with you. So please tell us, do you think that this has improved the health and wellness of your employees? Because your absenteeism right now is at 15%.
See, absenteeism, what we spoke, it may not be.
Be only health related.
Only health.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
It all depends upon what type of employees I'm having.
Right.
Whether it is a permanent or contractual.
Correct.
All these things.
Absolutely.
Got so many dimensions.
So generally speaking, do you think by doing all of this, it has helped your employees become well?
Some
Yes,
extent.
to some extent. Yes.
10%, 20%, 50%, 70%?
More than that, because there is a reason for why we are doing all these things.
Mhm.
Every year when our insurance cost goes up,
Right?
we compare that with that.
Okay.
That's how companies also getting into the wellness program.
Right.
How we can getting into. Actually, when you are telling that, okay, we are also thinking in that line.
Right.
But in a different way.
Correct.
Even that needs a cost.
Absolutely, 100%. So the reason I ask you this question is because if you look at this long list of things that people are doing, and people pick and choose from usually this list, and because of cost, I agree with you, there is definitely a huge cost associated with what would work best for your patients, for your employees. So this is again what I'm talking about, because blanketly providing all the services on this list to all the employees all the time may not be the right answer for your organization, right? You need to figure out what type of employees you have, manufacturing, IT people, whatever the case may be, what industry you're serving, and identify what might be the biggest risk factors that you actually have, right? Is it health related issues because of acute problems, that I feel I have a cold problem and therefore I'm taking time off, versus having diabetes and taking time off. There's a little bit of a difference there, right? So understanding the risk profile is an important one. So the reason I brought this list up is because after doing some research and talking to a lot more companies and insurance companies and TPAs, because I went and did the same type of presentation at TPAs. I've done it at Marsh and United Healthcare and lots of other people, MediAssist and lots of places. And they all are doing this for companies as well that they are tied up with, right? They do diagnostic testing, they do online consultation. I asked them, has it had any impact on your claims? About this much. It does not impact your claims because it's optional, right? First of all, it is optional. Second of all, it is like you're not being a sniper for the employee, you're actually a shotgun approach, right? That's because you're trying to throw everything at them and say, pick, do whatever you want to do. We are providing you with the necessary services. So that's the second issue, right? So the programs are sporadic, inconsistent, right? There is no clear disease management programs in place. When I say disease management, it is extremely critical to understand how do you manage disease on an ongoing basis, right? If you are already a diabetic or you already have hypertension, right? Or you are asthmatic since you're 15 years old, it's a very different story for you as you grow older. And how do you manage that most effectively? That's something that has to be thought through. And majority of the companies do not have a disease management program, right? How do you prevent chronic disease? If you know that your parents are diabetic, your grandfather was diabetic, probability you being a diabetic is almost high. But how do you prevent that? What type of lifestyle modification can you put in place when you're 25? so that you at least prolong the onset of the disease. It may not happen tomorrow, but if you don't have the right plan in place, you don't do it. None of your programs address that effectively, right? Because the thing is, nobody is hand-holding the patient, in this instance the employee, to go through their journey of evaluating what is the right thing for them to do. See, the problem that has actually happened is, I can't believe I'm going to say this in public, being an allopathic doctor, but allopathic medicine is one thing for everyone. If all of us go to a single doctor and tell him that I have a headache, all of us are going to get Brufen or Dolo 650, 100%, right? Can you think of anything else that you may get? You may get one other variation, right? Probability is almost 100%. Do they care for the 10-minute consultation as to why you have a headache? You could have a migraine.
That too, if it's available in next medicine shop.
That's right. That's most important. Easy access. You can't beat it. But nevertheless, so the thing is that allopathic medicine, unfortunately, because of those programs, do not provide the customized approach that actually patients need. All of us are different. And our backgrounds are different, our genetic composition is different, our hereditary aspects are different, our risk profiles are very different. I still don't have my six-pack abs. Hopefully I'll get it, but nevertheless. But the thing is that risk profiling, of understanding what the patient's having a problem, and customization is a critical component for success and of employee wellness. Right?
I have one question.
Please.
You are mentioning that this medical exams, what we do every year,
Uh-huh.
okay, annual medical exam,
Correct.
will not help you to address this issue.
No, it does not.
Because until unless we do that,
Right.
even employee,
Correct.
he may not take it further. But employee definitely knows that okay, he is suffering or he is going to
Right.
face that. Definitely he will make
Absolutely.
his life changes.
Correct.
If he understands
But-
his health is important, definitely he will do that. Otherwise, whatever you do,
Right.
even you take him to hospital and admit him for a month, he'll come after 30 days, he'll
Go back to his old
he'll
system.
go to KFC.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely right. See, the thing is, think about what actually happens to these employees. Let's think through that a little bit, and I would love to get your thoughts about it. So you do an annual diagnostic testing, doctor comes on site, there is a report, lab result, 3 pages long, everything CBC and everything else that is done for profiling. You give this to the employee, I'm the employee. I'm assuming that I'll end up now going downstairs to the doctor's clinic, he's sitting in the cafeteria or wherever he's sitting, and I do a consultation with the doctor. He'll say you're obese, or you have these issues, you have a high risk profile, your cholesterol is a little high, watch your diet, do some exercise, go home. Here are some tablets in case you need it, right? Unfortunately there you don't have the pharmacy next to you, but still. But the thing is that beyond that, now think about me as an employee. What do? I take the report, I've seen the doctor, I've got some medications, I might buy it, or I may not buy it, because now there is access issues now all of a sudden, right? I'm sitting in my office now, I have to think about medicines when I go home, on the way back home. Then I'm 25 years old or 30 years old and think, I don't want to do this situation, and I have other issues to deal with, I'll go back to KFC with my friends, right? So, and what happens after that? HR has no clue. This is what I'm doing. Now you're praying like hell that the claims don't come around, right? Because you've done everything you can to help me as an individual to do this. There is no incentives of ongoing hand-holding of the patient. What if there is a process by which we can actually connect with the patient on an ongoing basis? That's the critical component here, right? And as I mentioned, all interventions, allopathic approach, and then rewards for healthy employees are not consistent. Is there any rewards for healthy employees in your organization? Say, for example, I get my 6-pack tomorrow. Any thoughts on how I can be benefited? Nothing, right? Nobody even notices. The guy next to you in your cubicle say, hey, you look different. That's pretty much it, right? So the thing is that there is no incentives to be well from a corporate standpoint. Now going back to culture, right? As I was mentioning earlier. How do you drive good, strong culture to improve health and wellness? Your marathons and all the stepathons, etc. is a great idea. Getting a dashboard of how many steps you walked every day is a great idea, but that should turn into employee engagement. Now, how do you transfer all interventions that are put in place into engagement of the employee in the most effective way to provide the right option for the patient, right? So with that, talk a little bit about Sync Remedies itself. So before I jump into that, any questions, any thoughts? Make sense? I barked up the wrong tree or the right tree? Right tree? Okay. So let me talk a little bit about Sync Remedies itself. The reason I started Sync Remedies is because we realized that when patients typically have a problem, right, or employees in your organization, they start with allopathic medicine, on-site doctor visit, or some GP down the street. The parents will take you there, etc., right? You start with allopathic medicine, and then you take it for a while, and then you need to figure out, somebody will tell you, why are you taking this? Your grandmother will say, try Ayurveda, that's very good. Or home remedies. Your neighbor will say, go to homeopathy, I know this very good doctor. That's pretty much it. Nobody has a clue as to what is the right thing for you to do for your problem. That's point number one. Even if you do land up going to another doctor, say you tried Ayurveda because your grandmother was very persistent, right? Ayurveda doctor doesn't know allopathic medicine, right? Now he's going to give you a kashaya which you have to take along with your insulin. God help you, because you have no idea how to do it. And he didn't tell you how to do it, right? And the allopathic guy said, stay away from me, because if you take Ayurveda medicine, I have no idea, I am not responsible. And that is if you tell your allopathic doctor. Majority of people don't. I did actually a survey for about 50 people, one of these, like this type of a forum. And I said, so how many of you have tried Ayurveda medicine or homeopathy medicine? About 60% of them have tried. Then the next question was, how many of you actually told your allopathic doctor that you did? Nobody. Nobody. I said, they'll get mad at me. I said, think about what you're saying. Now you're taking two very potent medications without telling anybody anything. Now how are you doing this? You're taking half a spoon of kashaya, a little bit of insulin, checking your blood sugar, and it's okay, let's wing it. Shall I go? We can try and do some adjustment here and it'll be fine. That's exactly what's happening every day. Every day, right? Everybody is doing it. But think about why people are doing it that way. Ayurveda and homeopathic medicines are customized to your problem. If all of us go to Ayurveda or homeopathy with a headache, all of us will get different medications, because all our constitutions are different, and they do it because their whole approach is customized medicine. They don't have protocols, unlike allopathic medicine, right? So the reason the reason I started Sync Remedies was to overcome this confusion in the industry and to drive preventive care and wellness as a foundation to being healthy. Because Ayurveda and homeopathy are able to provide you with the right guidance around wellness and driving towards preventive care. Because if I know that my parents are hypertensive and I can take my medicine from Ayurveda or homeopathy, I will not get hypertension for a longer period of time. I postpone it as much as I can, less impact on my kidneys and liver, and has less side effects overall. In my instance itself, right, 3-4 years ago, I was diagnosed with having high BP. Allopathic medicine at Stanford, come on, chalo, let's go, write it. Came here, same story. My dad said, you got hypertension, let's go to Ayurveda. I have no idea if Ayurveda was the right option for me or not, but I went. And the doctor wrote a prescription for something and he gave it to me. And I said, okay, I'm on allopathic medicine. He goes, yeah, it's okay, you can take it. So I took it. I couldn't get out of bed. My BP dropped that morning. I said, what the hell is going on? And then I had to go back in the evening and I said, you prescribed this, I took that, and you told me to take it together. Oh, okay, you take that in the morning, take this in the evening. I said, what is this, yeah? You can't do like random situation going on where nobody really knows how potent any medication is and any side effects. Nobody tells me how to monitor my issues. So this is what is happening every day, right? So the reason for this is now we want to talk about how do you monitor the patients on an ongoing basis, right? For in my instance, if the doctor had told me, check your BP 3 times a day, make sure it doesn't fall, these are the side effects you may possibly have, these are the things the patient needs to know, right? But nobody tells you that. So Sync Remedies is a solution that provides ongoing hand-holding of the patient through the process, We are a completely an online solution, but we also have access to allopathic doctors who can come on site visits for acute problems. I'm not feeling well right now, I can deal with it. But anything chronic, non-urgent, we deal with it in an integrated fashion. So we have integrating allopathic medicine with Ayurveda and homeopathy, and providing a comprehensive and a customized wellness plan for employees and patients. So that's what we do. So you do land up doing a consultation with our doctors online. The treatment plan consists of pharmaceutical as well as non-pharmaceutical interventions like diet, exercise, yoga therapy, Ayurveda therapy, any other referrals, etc., which is comprehensive and customized to you as an employee or a patient, right? We talk about how do we actually drive wellness, what are the lifestyle modifications that needs to be put in place. We incorporate the findings of all those things that you all are doing for HRX assessment and diagnostic testing and any other reports that patients have, and build on it, right? So that is pretty much what, Guru, last slide of it. So basically that's what we are up to right now, where Sync Remedies, we have about 30 plus doctors on board from Ayurveda, homeopathy and allopathy. The way it works is that you come to our website, syncremedies.com, you register yourself as a patient, and then you actually launch into a dashboard that you get in, which is like an personal health record, which is electronic, online. You upload your results, any documentation that you actually have about your illness. You finish your profile, basically demographic profile, and then you fill out a short form, which is basically about the problem that you're actually having. I'm having asthma, I've had it for 15 years, and my parents had asthma, whatever the story is, along with the medications that you're actually taking. After that, you actually choose your doctors among the panel of doctors we have, or we recommend doctors to you based on your chief complaint. So if you're chosen your chief complaint as asthma, we have doctors who are experts in asthma who will come on the consultation with you. And then you book an appointment, you pay for it online. At the time of the appointment, you come back, log in, and launch the video conference which we have. So everything is done via video conference where you will meet Ayurveda and the homeopathic doctor. So going back to my original point, typically you started with your GP somewhere, and now you're thinking of whether there's an option your grandmother has told you to try Ayurveda. That's where you are right now, right? So you're trying to figure out what is the right option for you. And then that's why you talk to the Ayurveda and the homeopathic doctors. They write up a treatment plan encompassing everything that I talked to you about after talking to you for 40 minutes. That's like going, how many doctor visits? 4, 5? And then after that, the allopathic doctor on our panel will review the treatment plan and discuss how to take kashaya with your insulin, right? That problem has to be solved as well, right? Because this guy has just now ordered kashaya and you're still stuck with the same problem. So we solve that problem by having our allopathic doctors review the medication you're currently on, to understand what's really going on from Ayurveda perspective, what is the mode of action, what are side effects, what's the long-term impact, what are the parameters for observing you on an ongoing basis, and then come up with a treatment plan for you, which is customized to you. We have a patient coordinator who is the hand-holding person for you. Any questions that you have, you can actually contact them 24/7, and they'll be able to get if they know the answers, they'll tell you, or if not, they'll find the answer out for you and get back to you, right? The advantages of this is that we drive patients' wellness to health, to curative, the whole spectrum, no matter where you stand in that spectrum. And we do it for an ongoing basis, right? That is typically the problem with allopathic medicine, because there is no continuity of care. Continuity of care is the critical component for success, and I'm sure you have thought about this as well in your stepathon or whatever. If you don't consistently think about providing the incentives back, the feedback loop mechanism that has to be put in place, saying how well are you doing? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? What happened? What happened? If you build that into this and provide the accountability to the employees, then only you can actually have the right success for them. Once you're able to bring in that success, you can loop it back to your productivity and absenteeism issue as well. So with that, I think I should stop talking and answer questions. Thank you very much.
Can homeopathy or Ayurvedic cure all the problems? Or
It-
one has to go to allopathy?
typically actually happens is that when you go to allopathic medicine, the reason why all of us, majority of us at least, if you wake up in the morning, you're not well, you typically go to allopathic medicine. The reason for that is allopathy has the best symptomatic relief you can get, right? But at the same time, we don't have a good mechanism in place for long-term cure. It's not as though allopathy does not cure, we cure a lot of different things. But it is at a cost. There's always a trade-off of some sort, right? Ayurveda and homeopathy over the years have demonstrated that they have been able to cure and also manage disease very well, so that they prolong the impact of allopathic medicine that is needed, so that they'll be able to manage the progression of disease well. And like, for example, my classic case which we have seen is asthma. Patient with 25 years of asthma, on steroidal medication from allopathic medicine, inhalers, the works, came to us. She was 35, 37 or so, and the homeopathic doctor and Ayurvedic doctors did the consultation, and they told her that homeopathic doctor said, I'll cure you of asthma. Interesting. Allopathy never used that word cure and asthma in the same sentence, right? So homeopathy said, I'll cure you of asthma, but I need 1.5 years for you. 1.5 years.
It's a slow process.
Slow process. But her immunity was very low, and she was progressively getting colds and fevers and everything else on a regular basis. So the Ayurveda doctor, interestingly enough, in that instance said, I can boost your immunity while homeopathy treats you. And allopathy backed off. You use allopathy only if you need it, otherwise forget it. Right? Because that's the best symptomatic relief. 6 months has passed. She used to get an attack at least twice a week. Today she gets an attack once in 2 months. She's not had an attack for the last 2 months now. No allopathic medicine, only homeopathy and Ayurveda. And Ayurveda was only for the first 3 months. After that, Ayurveda also is gone. Only homeopathy medicine now. Right? So the thing is, somebody asked me about combination medicine earlier. I don't remember who it was. And I said, consciously I'll avoid saying combination medicine, because combination medicine suggests that we give you 3 medicines and have fun with 3 medicines now, and God help you. Right? So no, we don't believe in combination medicine. It might be a combination medicine in this instance as well, but it was a thoughtful combination of medicine with a clear-cut plan as to what the patient should do and what the doctors will do for the management of disease in the most effective way for that patient. If you or I go for asthma to the same 2 doctors, we will give a completely different regimen, right? So it is not combination medicine, it is integrated medicine. There's definitely a difference. Any other questions? Please.
In my experience, personal experience of being a patient,
Mm-hmm.
I have been to all 3.
Okay?
2 of them I have consulted, one I just went and bought the medicine, that was
Right.
Ayurveda.
Correct.
I did not consult an Ayurvedic person.
Right.
I don't want to take the name of the doctor,
Right.
because it may not be very good,
Mm-hmm.
but it happened in Bangalore. First thing, even before I understood what my problem was, he asked, what are you suffering from? I happened to say, chronic cold. You know, we have 2 or 3 schemes. And one is 100% cure, 2-year scheme. But you know, it may be expensive, so to help you out, we will say you can start with 1 year. We advise you, though it's a 2-year scheme, take it for 1 year, and then we can think of it.
I am sorry.
I religiously followed that schedule given to me for 1 full year, 12 months. 12th month, even before I took the medicine of that round, the original doctor who gave me this scheme, he came. Others were there in between, other doctors. He came and said, your 1 year is getting over. How are you feeling? I'm sure you're about 50-60%. He said, I get 50-60% more of attacks, not the cure. So, 1 more year is there. I told you, you can take the next year. I said, no, doctor, I have come to tell you that if I don't get cured in this round of medicines, goodbye to homeopathy. Not only your dispensary. Now I'm slightly better because it was 3 months ago I gave it up. I'm slightly better.
Okay, so
Yeah, my point is this is the description of what happened. But my understanding of all this is homeopathy may be great,
right.
Ayurveda may be also great,
Mhm.
and as you said, symptomatic treatment really nothing to beat allopathy. I agree, but my personal understanding from all these visits is, everything depends upon, all the goodness of each one of these systems depends on the diagnosis.
Correct.
The diagnosis, these great doctors who come and sit there,
Mhm.
so 24 years of age and 28 years of age, they come and diagnose you, homeopathy, how do you sleep, you feel comfortable while sleeping on your back or on your stomach, right or left. All this I understood, yes, they are trying to really diagnose. As much as I could recall all the things I gave, but that person's capacity or capability to diagnose is not these answers to these questions. That needs some processing here in the doctor's head. If that is missing, system may be great, but the system practitioner is not competent enough.
100%, and thank you for bringing it up. So the few things that I think there is an issue with, in unfortunately the process that many of you have actually faced, and I'm sure is nothing new. I'm sure other people have had this similar experiences as well. So there are two aspects that actually went wrong in your case, in my mind, right? The first one is going back to my old problem of my hypertension as well, where you're trying to go here and go there and take multiple different things at the same time and trying to figure out what might really be the right thing for you, without fully understanding what is the right thing, because that homeopathic doctor doesn't know what your allopathic medicines really is and how to take it effectively with your homeopathic medicine, right? So there is that first one is the problem. So second one, I agree with you completely. The competency of doctors are critical, right? And therefore they are good doctors and not so good doctors, no matter which field of medicine you take. If I ask you in this room who's a good cardiologist in Bangalore, I'm sure you come up with about 10-15 names, right? Because those guys stand out as good practitioners in the field, right? So there are two ways of thinking about it. In allopathic medicine, the way it is done is I train in MD cardiology, and therefore I become a cardiologist, and I'm supposed to be knowing cardiology. But in homeopathy and Ayurveda, the way they practice medicine is that they become experts by treating a specific ailment in an effective way, where they have case studies, right? So when we select our doctors, we actually visit their premise, we go through their documentation, we evaluate how many cases they have treated before and after, and ensure that the medical degrees are validated, because there are a lot of stories in Bangalore especially where duty doctors in nursing homes are Ayurveda doctors or homeopathy doctors, right?
All nursing homes.
All nursing homes, see,
All
that's
night
right.
shift.
The night shift, that's right. God help that situation, but unfortunately that is the case. Going back to your point, that competency is critical. And so what we do is that's one of the reasons why we built in the functionality of doing recommended doctors in our system. Because if I am a practitioner with 5 to 10 years of experience or more, and if I have treated asthma effectively in my life by about 300 cases, then I'm an expert in asthma. Predominantly, I can definitely gauge and actually treat the patients effectively. So what happens then is a patient coming in with asthma, they're matched with these doctors so that you have a much higher rate of success for the problem that you're coming in with, right? But I agree with you, competency is critical, and we have taken great pains to ensure authenticity of not doing night duty doctor situation problems, and also competency, right?
This competency question is a very precarious thing to be dealing with, I see, because
For several years I have been in management education,
Mhm.
MBA level.
Mhm.
I have been in different places,
Right.
different categories of or different grades of performance and capabilities and all that is available from IIM Ahmedabad to SPJ in Bombay to
Right.
IRMA in Gujarat,
Absolutely.
all that. And I am here now.
Mhm.
The first 5 months of my stay in Bangalore with MBA education under Bangalore University, I realized God help the corporate world. That is what I realized. Now, something similar seems
Should I be commenting on this or no? Okay.
Something similar seems to be happening also in the other fields of education, including medicine.
Mhm.
Everybody who has an MBBS certificate is not a doctor.
Oh, believe me, do not consult me on anything, please. That's
Pardon
great.
me?
I said, do not consult me on anything. I said, continue.
No, what I mean to say is our education has come to certificate distribution system rather than really giving knowledge and skills and competency to people.
Right.
Now, I was very happy when you were telling how you select your panel of doctors.
Correct. It has to be done.
Therefore, you will be rejecting a lot of people also.
I have interviewed about 300 doctors to get my 30 doctors. That's my funnel. That's how tight the funnel is.
If all the other fields of education follow that practice, we will be much better off.
Thank you. I really hope so.
So you have come up with an innovative, interesting concept. Say in all the organizations, what is happening, the mediclaim is processed and then the employees are taken care, and if they are in the same city where the HR officials are there, they go and visit and give a pack to come up with good health and all.
Right.
So these are things what is we are doing practicing currently in HR.
Correct.
So during hospitalization we take care. And your innovative concept is that post-hospitalization
or pre-hospitalization.
Pre-hospitalization,
Right.
how to take care of the health of the employees and their dependents and all.
Right.
So that's a very important concept, that is hand-holding and all.
Right.
This process to happen, but employees may be tech savvy. But if the dependents, I have seen recently for some negotiation with the insurance company, I had to analyze the claim ratio and claims and all. I found that the employees' claim were very less when compared with the 25 or 30, 44 claims. Out of that, 5 to 6 claims are only pertaining to employees, and others are dependents and
Right.
dependents claims. So I found that in view of this analysis, I found that the employees are good, healthy, and only the dependents are having problems and all like that. So if they are not tech savvy, how they will utilize your company's services? That's one thing. And people who will go near and the family doctor and all, they will go and consult. They will not be bothering to consult online through
Right.
your website and all. Logging
Correct.
and registering all these procedure. And
Right.
moreover, pharmacists will give medicine only when they
Prescription.
prescription
Right.
with the authorized prescription.
Right.
And then only they will give the medicine allopathic in terms of allopathy.
Right.
They strictly follow. They are supposed to follow.
Correct.
As per guidelines government.
Right.
So this kind of situation will not answer your organization will not answer this kind of situation. And also video conferencing, through video conferencing you are giving advice
Right.
and other thing.
Right.
So those things also your they should have all these through internet and other thing to have the facility of video conferencing to
Right.
have a chat with the doctors.
Sure.
So
I'll-
these are other aspects of
Right.
the thing.
I'll-
And third, further aspect, recently 1.5 years back, I used to receive these kind of companies, one mailer, one very good mailer, regularly every day.
I know.
used to get, and I used to also forward to all the employees and all health tips. They used to
Right.
give these fruits if they take, they will maintain good health.
Right.
About heart attack, how to
Right.
avoid heart attack, all these kind of health tips they used to give. But some point of time, some employees, senior management professionals said, why do you send all these mailers and all like that? Then that got demotivated and I stopped sending.
Okay.
And also unsubscribed from these companies.
Correct.
But later I again bothered to subscribe and get the mail only, and I do not send it to others.
Correct.
Like that. So those kind of more value-adding
Services.
are being done by your
Yes.
this kind of organization.
Correct.
Lot of organizations are there similar to yours.
Right.
So how do you address these concerns?
Sure. So let's start with how many I remember right now. So the thing is that so see, you told the allopathic doctor 3-4 things and I just remember one. So that's how it goes. That's right, tablet, correct. I need to take a memory tablet now. So the thing is that let's start with the first one about when you said about employee. You said that you analyzed your claims and you said the employees are better off health-wise than the dependents, right? So the first foremost thing I would like to say is that this is a data point that has come based on claims, which is after the fact. You have no idea how many people are waiting to hit the hospital right now. So you're still flying in the blind. So that's your first problem that we are facing with the information at hand. What we are not doing effectively in this instance is looking at the diagnostic testing report, which might happen annually or whatever the case may be, and evaluating what is the risk profile of the employees in your organization. So to that point, that is something that I will caution you about, that yes, today that is your claims ratio is that way. Tomorrow it could be dramatically different, right? I caution you on that. Now, with regard to tech savviness, I think the employees, as you rightly pointed out, are tech savvy, and the question comes about is dependence. What we have also noticed is that we have treated patients from 14 years of age to 90. And we have seen a wide variety of issues from simple cold cough and skin rash to cancers and serious diseases as well. But what we have also seen is that when the motivation for helping the dependents are there are people who will help them out at home. Children, grandchildren, whoever the case may be. We are trying to put this on a tablet. We're going to put in potentially very soon, put it on a phone so that everybody has smartphones, I'm sure, in this room, and easier access. Right? Today it's definitely on the laptop, so that's what we need to do right now. So the internet problem also will go away because you can use cellular connection as soon as you go into a phone model, right? Now, with regard to technology part of it, yes, you need a laptop, you need to make sure that you have a webcam because you have to do video conference, and the majority of the laptops today have webcams as well. The internet connectivity, yes, you need to have internet, but we are able to provide the solution in a very low bandwidth, even 1 Mbps or even less than that sometimes, right? So the connectivity, even though in like tier 2, 3 cities, etc., may be a little low. In Dodbalapur, I'm sure the connectivity is reasonably good. I'm sure we'll be able to help those guys out as well. But from a technology capability standpoint, yes, we have the capability to provide the right solution. Access standpoint, we are hoping that if the seniors are not able to do it for themselves, there are others in the family or friends who might be able to help. That's today. Many instances, we are in discussion with corporates where we can actually put a kiosk in the corporate setting so that people can come to that place and do it and not just do it on there. But that may not answer your dependent problem, but at least there is an option. Eventually, we'll think of putting kiosks in the city somewhere so that people have access like the old cyber cafe type of deals where people can come and do the consultation, but we are not there as yet right now. We are also considering options of actually home visits where we can actually get a person who's sitting on a bike with a laptop to come to your house to do it. So at least in Bangalore, we might be able to organize it, but spreading it out to other tier 2, 3 cities or other metros will be taking some time as we are a startup, right? So that was with regard to dependence. Then with regard to prescriptions, what we have done is that all the patients get a prescription that they can actually download or save or send it by email or whatever the case may be, where they can actually take it to the pharmacy because it has the doctor's name and the medical license number and the registration number. So that all the pharmacies, Ayurveda, homeopathy or allopathic medicine, all of them value that document, and I've talked to them, they've been able to service any pharmacy will be able to take it because it has all the necessary information. The other thing we have also done is partnered with pharmacies so that we can do home delivery of medicines. So you don't have to have this problem over taking the prescription somewhere. We can actually send it to you, right? So this is my length of my memory. Now I've lost the last one. The extent of my memory stops. So you had one more point, right? I just want to finish. Health tips. Thank you. Right. So our website.
Show interest in.
Yeah. So there are two things. Absolutely. There are two things. One is passive, one is active. There's a newsletter you can subscribe to, or we have a lot of information about health and wellness tips, home remedies, superfoods, lots of information, about 60, 70 articles on our website. We add one every week. So there's a lot of information about how you can maintain your health with simple things in the house. So, and other remedies as well. So we have a lot of information rich for people to look at as well. So definitely it's everything on our website.
Have you to subscribe to that before we?
No. It's all there. All on our website. You can go to our website, click on blogs section on the tab, and you can actually see it. It's about 40, 50 articles are there right now, actually.
Is it advisable to discontinue allopathy medicine and go for Ayurveda? Maybe if a patient is taking allopathy medicine for the 5-6 years, especially for heart diseases.
Sure.
Or suppose if it does, what the immediate, what the impact?
Right. So going back to my problem, BP problem, I am currently only on Ayurveda medicine. I am not taking allopathic medicine for the last 3.5 years now.
But before that you take
Before that I was. So the thing is, there is a titration process, as I called it, which has to be done the right way, not like the way I did it. Please don't do it that way. Don't take it both. That's right. Because the thing is, Ayurveda and homeopathy medicines, less homeopathy, but definitely Ayurveda, they are very potent medicines. They are as potent as allopathic medicine, right? For example, my BP today is controlled with only Ayurveda medicine. That means it is as good as my metformin, propranolol or whatever else that you take for beta blockers, etc., that you take for your BP, right? So that means to say that you have to be done the right way. So the answer to your question is yes, it might be possible, but it has to be done the right way with a very conscious effort to do it the right way. Right? And you as a patient and the doctor should know how to do it. Not what happens today, unfortunately, because it doesn't really work well for most people.
Surgery to be avoided.
Good question. So we have encountered many instances where surgery has been avoided. For example, in cancers or benign tumors where there is a growth, but that can be actually reduced dramatically. So
Say prostrate.
like prostate also, right? Prostate exams, etc., breast tumors, etc., where we have been able to dissolve the tumor in many instances. In many instances, gone down to such a small level that it is either insignificant or it could be done with a laparoscopic approach. So many a times we have avoided large-scale surgeries, right? So it is again depending on the type of treatment, type of diagnosis, and the extent of disease, and lots of other factors that has to be taken into account. Actually, it's funny that before this meeting, I went to a patient's house who had called me there about a tumor that she has, and she wanted to know if we can help. So it's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead.
3 questions.
Oh, see that again. My memory has to get around. Okay, continue.
The first is, you can hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
The first is, you've done a study on all these. So how have you left out Unani and Siddha?
Logistics.
Oh, 2.
Okay.
Because you've done a study on it. In the West, especially in Harvard, Dr. Chopra was chucked out of the that elite crowd.
Yes.
So he decided that alternative medicine exists.
Correct.
And the others said you choose this or that.
Right.
We will not allow you to practice allopathy. And Chopra is so famous that to chuck him out is a major feat, but they chucked him out.
Good.
He's out of that system.
Right.
So how did you, having been in Harvard and Stanford, Ivy League, Tier 1 and all that, how did you get onto this? And number 3, how do you choose what is the system applicable?
That's right. So, as I told you, firstly, Unani and Siddha was left out because of logistics. I think the thing is that this concept is very new in India or anywhere else for that matter, where we are trying to evaluate for a day-to-day problems for every individual how to do integrated medicine, right? Ayush is a big deal in India. There is a department for Ayush, Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, homeopathy and Siddha medicine. And they are promoting that from a rural area perspective, but we are saying that everybody can actually use it, and it has to be done the right way. So from logistical standpoint, I've left out Unani and Siddha. I'm sure over time, once we learn more about those sciences, we'll be able to integrate those practitioners as well effectively into this model. So with regard to integrated medicine in the US, my stint at Harvard and Stanford was completely allopathic medicine. But at the same time, those were the learning years where I realized that this is not the right the answer to everybody's questions. There has to be a better way. And that's one of the reasons I started my research and thought about doing it this way, right? And I think the overall integrated medicine, the way it's practiced in the US, there is a Centers for Integrated Medicine by Harvard and Stanford and everybody else. And the way it works is we will give you your chemotherapy for your problem, but if you have nausea, try acupuncture. Nobody questions the chemotherapy. So that's the extent by which they actually go. So NIH, also National Institute of Health, has something called complementary and alternative medicine, CAM. And CAM is a very important science. Unfortunately, in the US, none of which is really therapeutic. It's all around wellness, like nutrition supplements. And believe it or not, they have Ayurveda medicines on the counter for anybody to buy for whatever reason. God help that situation. Right, so you can actually buy BP medicines off the counter, right? And nobody's there to guide you on that. So I think from that standpoint, integrated medicine is an important concept, and much of my results has shown that the current process of going from one form of medicine to the other form of medicine, trying to figure it out, is completely the wrong approach, right? Because in many instances, which I'm sure all of you have encountered, you try with Ayurveda, your grandmother will say go to Ayurveda, or you'll end up going to Ayurveda after going to allopathic doctor. Then it didn't work. In your instance, you went to homeopathy for 1 year, tried it out, it didn't work. Today somebody will tell you go to Ayurveda, then next thing you know you go to Ayurveda. So the thing is that how do you choose the right form of medicine? Simple answer today is that there is no forum that exists to tell you the right answer. You cannot today go and find out that I, Arjun, have hypertension, which form of medicine is right for me and where do I go to get it. Cannot be done. I can challenge anybody for that. There's no data point to show you that, because Ayurveda and homeopathy don't operate this way. If you ask cardiology, Bangalore, you'll get a list of doctors, all of them cardiologists, to help me with my hypertension, right? But it doesn't work that way for homeopathy and Ayurveda. Unfortunately, there is no forum for that right now. So that's the reason why we are creating that forum, to say don't worry about trying to figure out what is the best option for you. We will tell you what the best option for you is and how to do it.
So how do you decide on that?
The doctors do the consultation. After the 40 minutes of consultation with the patient, the doctors then have another 20 to 30 minutes of discussion among themselves, the Ayurveda and the homeopathic doctors. And we have refined that because we did a pilot study last year for about 70-80 patients. And then we have figured out what are the questions to be asked among the doctors, that to define how to treat the patient in the most effective way. It's not about you and me, it's more about the patient, right? And then once that is decided, like in the asthma case, it was clear cut the homeopathic doctor is the lead doctor, because he said he will cure the patient in 15 to 18 months. And he had case studies to prove that he is really good at curing asthma. So the Ayurveda doctor took the back seat and said, okay, I will support you and you take the lead, right? So it is a series of discussion points that the doctors do in order to figuring out what is the right way to do this.
The initial 40 minutes
sorry.
or so. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, 1 second, sorry, she had the hand up earlier.
Just want to have things to be clear.
Yeah.
Check with you. One is Sync is already having an app which can be downloadable and understand the wellness of individual and the employees. That's one thing. The second thing is, are you driving in the concept of personalized medicine through this approach?
Good question. So our answer to both the questions is that if I had got 1 rupee for every person who asked me whether I have an app, I think I would have funded the company myself. But the app is on its way, but I don't have it today. But very soon we'll have an app, for sure. The second thing about personalized medicine is Ayurveda and homeopathy are personalized medicine. They're geared for personalized medicine. They cannot be protocolized. I was talking to one of the investors for the company investment situation. He goes, so what's the algorithm that you're going to use for asthma patients for Ayurveda and homeopathy? I said, thank you very much. I think I have to go now. Because now he's missed the boat completely, because he's thinking about it from an allopathic standpoint, right? There is no algorithm for that, and therefore Sync Remedies is personalized medicine. That's only thing we do. So every employee, every person who show up will be dealt with as an individual. So it's completely customized and personalized.
Sir, allopathic, Ayurvedic and homeopathy, all three are the doctors in the specialized field, they will have conflict of interest always. And when you take care of your customers, your patients, how do you address that?
That goes back to my earlier point about my funnel being very tight. It was basically because of competency and open-mindedness. Either their mind is closed or they are not competent. So I've weeded them out already. So that everybody who is in the game, understand the limitations of their field of medicine, are willing to play in the same sandbox as others. So that's the advantage here. Sorry.
What about Reiki and pranic healing?
Yes, that also goes back to my question about Unani and Siddha situation. Interestingly enough, if you think about forms of medicine, currently the only ones which are really thought about officially is Unani, Siddha, Ayurveda and homeopathy in India, and allopathic medicine naturally. Pranic healing and Reiki are called complementary medicine in India, where they are supportive therapies, so to say, like acupuncture, acupressure, Reiki, pranic healing, gem therapy, crystal healing, lots of things are there. One of the things that we have noticed is that there are the 3 things that I thought about to incorporate over time is Reiki, acupuncture and acupressure. Pranic healing, I don't know too much about it, but I believe it is good, so I need to do more research on it.
Just a last question. It's good to have the doctors discussing about case-to-case basis. But what kind of scientific study is there to back you up with the interaction between all the 3 schools of medicine?
You're absolutely correct. Integrated medicine, there is no studies.
Yeah. So how do you back it up with?
Right.
Or are you at least has Sync Remedies started documentation of
Yes.
interaction? So
So that's the reason why we built the electronic medical record, the personalized health record from scratch, just to do that. Where we are collecting the data to do over time, we will do comparative research of understanding how integrated medicine really will work. Because if you look at majority of the studies which are out there, it's all comparative research where we say it is as effective or more effective than allopathic medicine. Nobody has said how do I take it together. Right? So it goes back to my point about combination medicine, right? When you do integrated medicine, you need to evaluate how to take it together for a short period of time because you're trying to wean one out while you're giving something else more so, right? That type of medicine, there are not that many people who are doing it. The way we have been able to do this today is because of the interaction between the doctors, understanding the limitations of every field of medicine. How do you think about side effects and drug interactions, etc., and the mechanism of action from physiology and pathology, and evaluate what are the objective criteria we need to follow as doctors to monitor the patient the most effective way. So when we actually give a treatment plan for the patients, we're actually saying for your asthma, keep a log of it. Evaluate how many attacks you got, when you got it, what triggered it, right? And tell us back every time so that the patient coordinator can get it back to the doctor and say, he's got 3 attacks this week, right? After starting the medicines. So this is the feedback mechanism which will generate the data that you seek, right? Right now what we are falling back on is case studies and published literature which says, I can take some kashaya from Ayurveda is as potent as the amlodipine which was for my heart disease. That data I have. So I know this can be taken with this. But now the question, or this can be taken. But the question is, how do I get rid of this while I increase this dosage? That has to be done over time.
Anytime your doctor has told that, please stop medication to this patient.
No.
He said the last
Never.
question. Sitaram said last question.
Oh.
Because is any chance that...
So he decided it's the last question. That's right.
The last question is very important.
Mike ready to get up.
It's very important. Anytime they told, okay, we cannot give any medicine for this patient.
Right.
And they come out with the clear picture, like the clear...
So over time we have stopped medications, but initially we don't say stop medication tomorrow morning.
Initially.
No.
At some moment.
At some point, yeah. Yes, absolutely. So I hope I can count on you guys to call me to your companies and help you guys out as well. So thank you.
What is a half day workshop or full day workshop? Better to say.
Thank you. Oh yes, I have one small thing to do before you finish, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to do a small raffle. I think everybody has put their business cards in this thing. I want to give out a small little thing for a couple of people. So thank you very much again. So they'll do the raffle. So why don't you pick a business card and let's see who's the lucky winner. Yeah. Everybody has put their business card. Anybody to put it?
There's a lucky draw. Anybody has not put your business card, you can.
Lucky draw. Cool. Anybody?
How many?
Okay. That's it? Yeah, one. Oh, somebody else is putting it. Okay, all right. See, we got more.
Camera guy too.
Dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Oh, okay.
You can try with multiple cards also. You have
That's right.
How many?
One. For the first one. The lucky winner is
Hemant Kumar.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. I think today our the evening lecture session is special and different. We went to a diversification. With all of these sessions, we used to talk about HR. I think today we discussed more about health and wellness. That's a good thing because that's a different approach. And also, it's been related to the human resources management. See, ultimately, our objective in any organization that how well we manage our resources, how well they are being productive, how well it benefits our organization and business. I think today's session it is focused towards that, and also I think Dr. Arjun is able to make it very good, understanding for all of us. As you manage the human resources, it's always it is like kind of this is Rasi has given an example that when you go with a headache, doctor just gives in the prescription, you take the tablet. But it is not that we are not seeing that what is the reason for this headache. I think this wellness program definitely gives an edge to HR management, human resources management, to get into the details why this issue is. there are many issues or many problems for non-productivity or absenteeism or various issues. In such case, as a HR professional, as an organization, if we start putting in thinking towards that, what could be the reason for this kind of issues, how it can be treated, this is the best way to eradicate this kind of issues. The managing things, it is based on the day-to-day activities, what we do, it is different from eradication. And that's what I think we have to do. I think this can be, I feel, one of the strategy of HR for managing our resources. I request all of you to look at from this point of view. Maybe you can show something different from what is that routine, and also we can show something different from all our routines to the employees and the management. I think it will help us in doing the better human resources management by using different kind of tools. I can say that this is one of the tools for managing our resources. Right?
Right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arjun.
Thank you very much.
This is, I and Arjun, we're talking towards this session for last almost 3-4 months, and
That's right.
ultimately we made it today. Thank you very much for coming and
Thank
giving
you.
your thoughts and how we can be
Actually, while he's doing this, I have a couple more. My colleague over there just reminded that actually we have 2 more gifts to give out.
2 more?
Yes. So.
Okay. Yeah. First,
Oh, we'll do that. Okay. Oh,
It's a book here.
perfect. Thank you very much. That's very nice. Thank you very much. Perfect.
One of you would like to pick up? There are 2 more gifts. Come.
Sure.
I pick up my own card.
That's okay, no problem.
I'll close my eyes and pick it up.
Thank you. This is Devi Prasad.
He has it. He has it. Yeah. Thank you. Congratulations.
Karthik.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congrats.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.